I call the Honourable Nathan Guy.
Mr Speaker, can I take a moment to welcome all the new members to Parliament? Can I congratulate the National Party for returning back into government after the strong leadership and campaign by our fantastic Prime Minister, the Right Honourable John Key. Can I also acknowledge the 14 new National Party MPs that have come in on this side of the House. We have certainly refreshed and rejuvenated our caucus. Welcome to them. We've already seen the strength and depth of the National Party caucus by some fantastic maiden speeches delivered. And 14 new MPs on this side of the House. I think across the whole of the rest of the House there are 10 new MPs, and I welcome them. Can I also acknowledge the speakers as well? Mr Burrows, can I acknowledge you in your new role? Can I acknowledge the Honourable Trevor Mallard, Lindsay Tish, and importantly the Right Honourable David Carter, who's going to do a fantastic job as he proved that he can do over the last term of this Parliament. And while I am in a mood of congratulations, can I congratulate the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and especially the Minister Murray McCulley on securing our nomination and our place around the top table of the Security Council. That is a fantastic result for a small country down here in the South Pacific, New Zealand. Well done to all the officials that have done a fantastic job at securing a seat there at the top table in New York. And I know it will bring very tangible benefits for the New Zealand government for the next 2 years when we begin at the top table early next year. Can I also address the speech from the throne? And it's hugely important for the direction of New Zealand and hugely important to outline the work program for the John Key government into the next 3 years. And what you heard from the speech from the throne was the importance of the primary sector to the New Zealand economy, and also getting back to the election campaign, how rural and provincial New Zealand backed the National Party. Now, what we heard in the speech from the throne was that we're going to have a relentless focus on returning to surplus, that we're also going to aim to reduce Crown debt to 20% of GDP by 2020. The speech from the throne talked about a real focus on trade, and it's great that the Minister of Trade, the Honourable Tim Gross, has just come back from ministerial meeting in Australia over the weekend. And Trans-Pacific Partnership is moving in the right direction. Maybe it's not quite as quick as those of us on this side of the House would like, but it is making solid progress. And hopefully, in the early part of 2015, we can see even some greater progress. And we know that that's vitally important in opening up new markets for our exporters. What is also going to be important is landing a free trade agreement with Korea and also with the Gulf states as well, and many other countries. We should also acknowledge that the focus that NZTE, MPI and MFAT have on enlarging our international footprint to make sure that we've got the right offices in the right place to open up new opportunities for our exporters. Also, the speech from the throne focused on the investment into research and development. And the challenge for industry and for businesses in New Zealand is to continue to invest in research and development. Now, we're currently about 0.5% of the GDP, and we want to focus and make sure that we can land and extend that to 1% by 2018. We've also got to focus on food safety and biosecurity. Now, in the speech from the throne, it talked about the Food Safety Science and Research Centre, which is going to be one of the important things that came out of the Fonterra WPC ministerial inquiry last year. We've also got a real focus on primary growth partnership programs, 16 of them underway, delivering value right across the primary sector value chain. A real focus also, Mr Speaker, on infrastructure. Now, that's to do with roading, that's to do with rural broadband, and that's to do with irrigation. Now, if we think about roading, Let's think about the tangible benefits in my electorate of the Kapiti Expressway, a project that across the Parliament, Labor and the Greens have opposed all the way. A road that is investing $630 million into my region, a road that is going to connect communities, that's already, we're seeing 400 jobs created, and it will grow to 1,000. So when our opponents stand up and say we're doing nothing for the regions, we're doing nothing to create jobs, well, here's a classic example. It was fantastic in the campaign to turn the sod with the Prime Minister on Transmission Gully, a project that has been on the cards, hot and cold and lukewarm, for decades. Now we have the government with the guts and vision to build Transmission Gully, which is going to be vitally important for the Wellington region. Now we need to focus specifically on connectivity for our rural and provincial towns and communities. And that's why it was fantastic that $150 million is going to be rolled out on increasing our mobile coverage and also rolling out rural broadband, because we know that our rural communities are the powerhouse of the New Zealand economy. Now, they need to be able to connect with consumers and customers around the world. And it's frustrating when they can't do that. So we are backing rural and provincial New Zealand. And we have just come through periods of droughts in the last couple of years since I've been Minister. And we know that water storage is hugely important for the most productive part of the New Zealand economy, and that is the primary sector. Now, we don't have a shortage of water in this country. It just falls at the wrong time in the wrong place. We only collect and store about 2% of the water that falls in this country. That's why the government is investing in the Crown Irrigation Investment Company, $120 million to kickstart these regional water storage projects. We know that they are going to help to grow our exports. We know there's about 400,000 hectares of land that could be under irrigation in New Zealand that isn't currently. We know that it's also vitally important for the environment, that you can maintain summer water flows, and that's good for the aquatic and marine life. There's also going to be a real focus on water quality, because we've brought in national standards for water, for fresh water, bottom lines, and also we have in the campaign said that we are going to bring in a policy that's going to mean that dairy farmers will need to ensure that their cattle are excluded from waterways on the 1st of July 2017. We need to acknowledge that our dairy farmers in New Zealand have come a long way. They have fenced 22,500 kilometres so far, which is fantastic. And we've got just a little bit more to go. We've also indicated that we're going to invest $100 million in a voluntary buyback of significant land near waterways of significance. And that's going to be done on a voluntary basis with the landowner. And we need to acknowledge the fact that farmers, in my opinion, are environmentalists. They want to ensure that they're leaving their farms and their land in a better place than when they took it over for their children and grandchildren. We're also going to have a focus on making sure that we do the Resource Management Act reform that we've talked about, and I need to acknowledge we've done a fair bit already, but more to be done to ensure that we give more certainty, timeliness and cost effectiveness. We're also going to have a focus, as you heard from the previous speaker, the Honourable Maggie Barry, on the oceans environment, and some of that touches on the area that I look after, which is fisheries. We're going to modernise the marine protected areas legislation, which will allow us to create recreational fishing parks in the inner Hauraki and also in the Marlborough Sounds. We're going to focus on international research to do with greenhouse gases, and there's much more to do in terms of encouraging industry to come and plant more trees. And finally, working closely with Minister Flavel, the new Minister for Māori Development, because a big part of the growth opportunities in the New Zealand primary sector is in Māori agribusiness, and I'll be working closely with him. A fantastic program of work laid out for the next 3 years, and I'm really excited about it.
Speaker.
I call the honourable member Phil Twyford.